All right, welcome back. So I continue to review Ahsoka each week. I continue to not get to it on time. There was a time when I was getting, when I was watching Star Wars, each new episode of like The Mandalorian or whatever, and I was, coming up with a review and a video review that day or even early or even, pretty timely, right? But I guess I'm just feeling jaded. Over time, with The Mandalorian, the first two seasons were really good. And then we got the Book of Boba Fett, which was a super huge disappointment. Obi-Wan Kenobi, huge disappointment. Mandalorian Season 3, huge, crushing disappointment. And the only good thing we've had, really, since Mando Season 2 has been Andor. So I guess, if Andor had aired and then Ahsoka had come out right afterwards, maybe I would be more excited for this. But instead we got Mandalorian Season 3, which was just so heartbreakingly bad. I'd had a couple good moments, but when I think about that season, I just still see Jack Black and Lizzo, and I feel sad. I feel sad. Ahsoka, though, it has potential. For fans of Rebels, this is a continuation of that story. For fans of Clone Wars and, Ahsoka's character there, this is a continuation of that story. So it really is the continuation of Dave Filoni's various animated shows into a live-action show. Now, whether that's wise, whether it should be a live-action show, or whether they should have just continued these stories in animation, that remains to be seen. There's cases for and against. For, I would say, is Ray Stevenson's Baylan. A dark Jedi who has managed to be the most fascinating part of this show by a long mile. I really love this character. I want to know more about him. He's so interesting because he's like a bad guy, right? But he has the restraint and sort of an honor, a code of honor that maybe Ahsoka herself doesn't even have. There is running through Ahsoka that same recklessness that Anakin had, right? Whereas, Balin seems composed and in control. And there's a part where when they fight in this episode where he seems very disappointed that they come to this. He says how inevitable in a very sort of forlorn manner. And you get the sense, and he's even said this, that he would hate to kill Ahsoka. There are so few Jedi left. He said that in a previous episode. So it's really interesting seeing this version of a dark Jedi that is, I don't know. I want to see where it goes. It's very different than Anakin or Palpatine or whatever. I like Shin Hati, his apprentice. She's the opposite of Baylan. She's the wild card, right? A firebrand. She's, at one point after he convinces Sabine to give him the map, then she starts force choking Sabine, but he stops her because he's promised Sabine that it'll keep her safe. So it's interesting how very, very different these two dark Jedi are. And the title of the episode, Fallen Jedi, could reference either of them, more likely Balin, since he was clearly part of the Jedi at one point. But it could also be a reference to Ahsoka, or even to Anakin, who shows up at the end of the episode in what I believe is the world between worlds, sort of mystical plane that, I don't know, we won't get into that, but he's not a Force ghost there, so it's possible he's traveling through time, or I don't really know. I'm not sure where this is going. But certainly of all the Fallen Jedi, Anakin is sort of the biggest and the most consequential, right? Cool to see Anakin. Not so cool to see the de-aging effects that Lucasfilm has used to make him appear younger. He looks really weird. I prefer the Obi-Wan version. In that show, they just didn't even bother de-aging Ewan McGregor or Hayden Christensen. And yeah, they looked older than they would be, but at least they looked like real people. Here, his looks just pretty weird. Anyways, this episode was definitely better than the previous three. For one thing, there was a lot less sort of plotting, exposition. The pacing was better overall. There was a lot more fighting in this, and the lightsaber duels were really cool. I like that each of the characters kind of has their own style and stance. You know, Baylan is more like a medieval knight with a heavy greatsword. Ahsoka fights more like with like a katana almost, and Shin is just like a wild. So all the lightsaber duels were cool. It was cool to see the bad guys actually succeed and beat the good guys. That's always nice. And they get away on their hyperspace ring. Huyang even gets a fight with another droid and shows that he does have some fighting chops, although maybe is not designed for fighting. So he also there's also some things in this episode that were weird. Like he tells them not to split up. He says you're stronger together, and literally the next thing they do is split up. like they run into bad guys, and immediately Sabine is chasing the Jedi chick, the dark Jedi chick who almost killed her, who should have killed her in episode 1. She's chasing her off into the woods, which is stupid because she knows she's outmatched and outclassed, and it just seems like a foolish decision, an unnecessarily foolish decision. I did like that Ahsoka kills Merrick, I think is Marok. I don't know how to pronounce it. A lot of people had fan theories that he's going to turn out to be some important character, but she just like kills him in like 2 seconds, which and it looks like he was probably a reanimated Inquisitor. The Night Sister Elspeth probably just reanimated him. That's cool. I'm glad that they just sort of dispensed with that early on and in such quick fashion. It is kind of funny that one slash of the lightsaber does him in, whereas Sabine getting stabbed and she's just fine, and not just fine, but up and running, fighting again with both her Mandalorian blasters and everything, and a lightsaber in this episode. The other weird thing about that scene, speaking of splitting up and making stupid choices, is when Ahsoka dispatches Marok, whatever, Maraka. Then Sabine's like, I got this, you go ahead. And it's like, no, you don't. Like, you don't have the Force. You can barely use the Force to do anything. You can't move a cup. Whereas this chick could literally just Force choke you. And it's like, why doesn't she? Why doesn't she just, like, right then in that fight, just knock Sabine down or lift her up in the air and kill her? I don't get it. Which is what Ahsoka should have done is she knows that Sabine can't beat this chick, so she should have run over, and they should have two-teamed her, outnumbered her, dispensed with her, and then gone together to get the map. But instead, they split up again. So that's dumb. But otherwise, I did think this is a good step in the right direction. Fun action. They move the story along without delaying it too much. Not a lot of exposition. Yes, the dialogue is still pretty janky, but at least everything Baylan says is great. And I want him. I either want this show to get better, or I wish he was in a different show, written by Tony Gilroy or something in the Andor team, because his stuff is right up there with Andor in terms of the acting, the performance, the delivery of the lines. The lines themselves aren't always the best, but he does them so well that you don't notice. So, I don't know. I'm not going to go on and on about this. I enjoyed it. I was more engaged with this episode than the previous 3, and I'm curious to see where they go with it next. And I'm crossing my fingers because I would love more than anything to have good Star Wars be the norm and not the exception. So we'll see. Let me know what you thought of this episode down in the comments, or if you're even watching the show, which I know a lot of people have given up on even before it aired. So thanks for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and peace.